Today we'll be chatting to Wes McDougall. Wes is a heart adult who has had a stunning career as a racing engineer, now working for Supercheap Auto as the chief engineer, as well as an instructional coach for his own business, The Complete Race Driver. Wes and I will be chatting about his experience growing up as a heart kid and pursuing such an exciting career.
A lot of it's just being grateful to loved ones, to the surgery, for being born in the right century. A lot of people tell me that you're lucky that you're born now and not 100 years ago, you know. And there's so many little things like that you pick up and you learn to look at things with a brighter light and a greater perspective on things. And that's why I'm here now with HeartKids, trying to give back and help out, you know.
Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we record. Today we are recording on country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains. We pay our respects to elders past and present who are a part of the world's oldest continuing culture and our first storytellers. We acknowledge the importance of supporting health for all peoples now and in the future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners should be aware that this podcast may contain images, voices, and names of deceased persons. A very warm welcome to you, Wes. Where are you joining us from this evening?
Yeah, good evening. I'm calling in from Brisbane, so up in Sunshine State.
Lovely, sunny Queensland. So has Queensland always been home?
No, it's been home for the past sort of 20 years now. I was actually born in the UK, but I moved over to Australia when I was 5 years old, and I grew up in Melbourne. So yeah, spent all my sort of schooling and growing up and getting into mischief. That all sort of happened in Melbourne.
Okay, so you definitely identify as an Aussie when we watch the rugby or the cricket.
Yep, completely. Yep, I love my sports and I'm 100% Aussie. I don't want to be associated with the Poms in that regard. But yes, no, I'm Aussie through and through.
Always good to clear that up just from the get-go. So, Wes, you're a heart adult, but obviously you were once a heart kid. So what's the name of your condition?
So I was born with something called Tetralogy of Fallot. So it's a combination of different, defects, if you like. So main one being that I was born without my pulmonary valve, which supplies and oxygenates all the blood to the lungs. So yeah, that's what I've been living with now for 46 years.
Yeah, okay. And so when were you diagnosed, Wes?
I was diagnosed, as a toddler when I was sort of two or three.
Oh, okay. So not straight after birth.
No, so I guess I'm of the vintage, if you call it that there weren't really sort of tests for this condition when my mother was pregnant, and it was the sign of really my lips being blue as a kid. That was a bit unusual. Parents went and saw the doctors and did tests, and yeah, that's how I was diagnosed. It was after birth.
Yeah, and so true to what you said, that era, that time just referenced as blue babies, weren't they? Back then, like you said, we didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we didn't have the fortune of ultrasounds and even just straight after birth. So that's quite phenomenal. So I understand you had your first surgery when you were around 3. Where did that occur?
So yeah, at that time I was still in England, and that was in a hospital called Papworth Hospital in Cambridge. So yes, I have some very tiny memories, little snapshots, but yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about that, but I'm sure my parents do.
Okay, and so were you living close by to where the surgery was performed, or did you have to travel?
Yeah, it wasn't too far, I guess. Yeah, England isn't a big place. It was sort of a couple of counties across, I guess. So yeah, it wasn't huge travel for my parents.
Yeah, okay. And you said obviously your recollections and memories of it are quite minimal. Is it more so what your parents have shared with you as well?
I don't really think they've shared anything with me, to be honest, in terms of too much. I just remember sort of maybe 2 things. I remember the operating theatre in some way, just everything being metallic, just a very hazy memory of that. And I remember a toy remote car that I think my parents got me. I remember driving that around the floor, obviously not in the surgery room, but in like the
in the hospital
room or something, in the hospital in general. Yeah, they're my two sort of memories.
Oh, wow. And that obviously really sort of sets the tone for what was going to lie ahead.
Yeah. I guess that's yeah.
Yeah. And so, Wes, I understand you've had a secondary surgery since. So how long ago was that?
That was just coming up on be 10 years next year. So yeah, nine years now. When I had my second follow-up surgery. So yeah, the first time they put a patch on my heart rather than put a valve in, and the second time was again open heart surgery, and they put an artificial cow's valve in where my pulmonary valve should have been. Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm sure you've got many memories of that as well. So in comparison to the first surgery, so just the two surgeries?
Yes, two, yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously the second one, you're an adult. You know exactly what's going on. What was that like? Obviously the first time round, I suppose the stress and the overwhelm and the burden probably is placed more so with your parents. What's it like being an adult and actually sitting across from a surgeon as they're explaining what they're going to do?
Yeah, it was. Look, yeah, it certainly came as a shock to me. You know, you hit the nail on the head. It was certainly a burden and stressful for my parents. I didn't know any different, and I don't have any sort of major recollection of my first surgery, but the second surgery was, yeah, a little traumatic, I guess. The diagnosis sort of came as a little bit of a shock. I'd sort of been feeling fatigued and just gradually going downhill, and yeah, you know, met every 4 years with cardiologists and spoke with them again, and they're sort of saying, oh, you know, this is why your heart's enlarging, because you just have this patch on there, and it's the right sort of ventricle's getting larger and larger, and that's why you're getting this fatigued, and we sort of need some action here sooner rather than later to keep you healthy. So yeah, I think naively, yeah, I didn't realise I had to have surgery, and I guess maybe that wasn't probably properly explained at the time. You know, it was a long time ago, back in the early 80s, when I had my surgery, maybe to my parents either. So it was, yeah, came as a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot to process, and it's different, isn't it, when we're an adult, because the consequences are real. And yes. I think when that beautiful frontal lobe hasn't developed, pre-25, we feel quite invincible, don't we? So like you said, it sounds like it sort of came as a big surprise. But so how long had you been experiencing these feeling fatigued and different other symptoms?
It was probably about between 6 and 12 months, just been, under a lot of pressure at work and just, feeling run down and tired, and, meetings with doctors and cardiologists, and then, that was the sort of diagnosis.
Yeah, okay. And so obviously it sounds like it happened quite quickly. Obviously you've been experiencing the symptoms for 6 to 12 months. As we do, we push it off to, it's just work, or there's just a lot going on. And then next minute you're having surgery. So did surgery, was it straightforward or? No, I don't believe it was. I mean, I was obviously asleep or under anaesthetic at the time, but it was quite a complicated surgery and quite lengthy as well. So at the end, I guess, of the routine part of it, they did all their checks and they realised they'd left something that they shouldn't have inside me. So they had to. Oh gosh, they had to go back. Do most of it again and reopen myself up. And in that process, I lost a lot of blood, sort of like around 3/4 of what the human body contains. So it was quite traumatic for, I believe, everyone in the surgery in the surgery. I was blissfully, consciously unaware, but I guess subconsciously I was around and aware of what was going on. Wow, Wes, that's intense. And I suppose now I'm going to ask about the loved ones in your life, because like we just said, the burden first time is with your mum and dad. now it's you as an adult and, may I ask, you have a family, you have wife, children?
Yes. So, I think it was, incredibly tough on the people around me, especially my wife and parents. We hadn't had our daughter at that stage, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, we'd sort of, met 9-12 months previously. So it was, this huge thing that happened early on in our relationship. So it was a big deal for her. And they were just incredibly supportive. And I get emotional and I get upset thinking about how stressful it must have been waiting in
for them.
The waiting room for her.
Yeah.
Because, it's, how long's the surgery? Oh, it's supposed to be 4 hours. And then it's when it becomes 8-12 hours, then, your mind worries. But I'm blissfully unaware, but everyone else is dealing with the reality of it all.
Yeah, is really living through it.
Mm.
So that must have still been a lot for you once you obviously, came into recovery and so forth. Like you must have felt even just within yourself. I know obviously there's a lot of medication on board, but that must have been really confronting, even just looking at your parents or your girlfriend in the eye after coming out the other side.
Yeah, I guess there was initial confusion. I was heavily medicated, and I remember sort of while I was still in the recovery process, one of the surgeons or doctors, I don't know who it was because I was not really awake, someone coming up and apologising to me, and I couldn't make head or tail of what was happening. And in my state, I thought that I was going to need to have the surgery again. I couldn't quite put together what had happened.
Yeah, okay.
I realised later it was one of the surgeons coming and speaking to me and just apologising for the mistake that they must have made, but I don't know who that person was. So that was the first I really knew about what had happened. And then I think I was in hospital for a week afterwards recovering, and then it's really the physical aspect. There is the focus on how you recover and the medication and getting up and walking again and all these sort of things you take for granted. So the focus is on that. And it's not really till much later that the mental aspect of it all and the brain trying to cope with what happened really kicks in. So, I don't think I really thought about it too much until 6-12 months sort of later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose, your body's obviously gone through a hell of a lot of shock, and then almost the focus then switches straight to the recovery. So you're probably not even processing what's actually really happened.
Exactly.
So, and that must be now as an adult, to put that all into perspective and what it must have been like, or I suppose like I'm a heart mum and I think about that. I think about when my son had open heart surgery and the worry and all those things, and exactly that, our surgery took longer. And you jump to different conclusions and everything else because you're in the moment, aren't you? And we're human. So how do you look at things now? Like I know that's, you're saying that's, what is it? It's 9 years ago now. How do you process it now, or how do you think about it now? How do you look back on it? Because I'm sure there's many people listening thinking, gosh, what does this look like for my son or daughter that was a baby and they're going to need surgery as an adult? Like, do you have anything to share about, I don't know, better ways to process or some, pearls of wisdom that, you've experienced?
Yeah, look, I guess it's been it hasn't been an easy journey, but it's certainly been a fulfilling one. And that's sort of, I guess, where I've got to the point now where I do have a 4-year-old daughter, and so that put a lot of things into perspective to me.
Yeah, sure.
For, that I think it's, often would feel, I'm not in sort of your shoes, but it would feel so much worse for the parents than almost the person going through the surgery. So that puts things into perspective. But really, I guess I've been on a journey for almost 10 years trying to make sense of it all. And I think, it's a combination of so many things. And at the end of it all, it's a lot of it's just being grateful to loved ones, to the surgery, for being born in the right century. A lot of people tell me that you're lucky that you're born now and not 100 years ago, and there's so many little things like that you pick up, and you learn to look at things with a brighter light and a greater perspective on things. And that's why I'm here now with HeartKids, trying to give back and help out,
Yeah, that's beautiful, Wes. Thank you for sharing. It really resonates, I think, with a lot of people, even just you saying that about the time and the era. I know we talk a lot on this podcast about it's just a different world now. We're so fortunate, even just where HeartKids is now. There's a lot of people on the journey that HeartKids were still either not in existence or it was in its infinite state. So I love you referencing, the era that we're in, because, it's not that long ago where they couldn't put a cow or a pig valve inside of a human. Now we're talking about, well, actually it was in Brisbane, wasn't it, that the engineer that created the first mechanical heart that was just placed in a gentleman over in the US, and that was out of Bris Vegas, which is fantastic. But it puts it all into perspective, and I love the fact that you touched on that gratefulness, and it's beautiful that you want to give back to the community because, as I always reference, it takes a village and it takes different perspectives to push us along as a community, but also to help us all connect as well, because sometimes we feel like we're the only one.
Yeah, I think there's something in that community sense of sharing that's helpful as well. And you do feel, I think, alone at the start. So especially as an adult, it's good to have that support and sharing and listening to other people that have been through something similar,
Yeah, that's right. So Wes, let's change things up. I'm really curious. I need to understand more about you being the chief engineer for Supercheap Auto and the supercar team. This sounds just phenomenal, considering your journey is phenomenal in itself. So talk me through this. How did this journey of yours start, your career?
Yeah, I just feel like I've liked motor racing and motorsport, since I was a kid. It's in the same way that everyone has their niche and what they like, whether it's footy or cricket or whatever it might be. For me, it was racing cars and motorsport. And I fell in love with that and loved watching Formula One on TV, and Dad would take me to motor races, and that's all I ever wanted to do. And just, I've always been fascinated with the technical side of things and how things work. And that was sort of my focus, as long as I can remember.
So it was obviously a dream and now it's a reality. So now you're living it. So I'm assuming you've had to study. I'm assuming there's a whole piece of work behind all of this, the technical side of things. Like, there's obviously so much knowledge. So where do you start? Like, how do you start acquiring that, or how do you start this career?
Yeah, I guess for me, for my journey, it was a combination of two things, the sort of theory and practical element. So I knew this is what I wanted to do. And summer holidays of year 11, I sort of volunteered for a local team when I was in Melbourne. And that just sort of threw petrol on the fire that was already burning, and that just accelerated things. And I just loved that environment of working in a team with, like-minded, passionate people. And then when I finished high school, I got into engineering and completed my mechanical engineering degree. From there, I was doing sort of working part-time and doing my uni degree. And then when I completed that, I went back to the UK and worked in England, which I guess is the sort of motorsport mecca, if you like. There's so much motor racing there, and worked throughout Europe for a couple of years.
Okay. And so is there anything that, obviously myself being quite naive to this sort of realm. Is there anything that you could share that would like you say, obviously that's Mecca, you know, the UK is Mecca of the industry. So who did you work for, or what sort of roles did you have over there?
Yeah, so I've worked as a race engineer. So, you know, I guess I'm the guy on the radio to the driver, and I'm the intermediate between the sort of the team and the mechanics and the driver, and it's my job to try and make the car go as fast as possible. So that's, you know, mainly dealing with things like the suspension and the aerodynamics and things like that, trying to give the driver what they want and also make the car go as fast as possible.
Wow. That sounds intense. It
is. It could certainly be, intense and stressful, and things are happening. You're sort of reacting in real time to events. So you've got to be on your toes, but also a lot of pre-planning, and I think a lot of people I speak to about this don't realise just the amount of planning and then also analysis before and after a race that goes into it. Sort of almost more gets done back at the workshop than what happens at the racetrack.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's all that preparation and I suppose, like you said, analysing previous races, and I'm assuming you probably have to really deep dive into the tracks too. Would I be right in saying that? And understanding like what speed you can take a corner at? Like, sorry, super naive over here, but...
No, that's completely fine. Yeah, it's motor racing is really, it's a sport, but it's also engineering. So it's sort of the two things combined, and there's just so much data that's involved in it all. So the cars record all this information, and then it's, you know, our job as engineers to strip that all back and drill deep into that and understand what's happening with the car, and also use that to sort of coach the drivers, because motorsport sort of famously doesn't have traditional coaches like you would have a footy coach or a tennis coach. So it's quite different in that respect, and because it is so engineering based, a lot of that sort of falls on the shoulders of the engineer, not only to try and look after the car, but also train the athlete, in this case being the race driver.
Yeah, okay. So you've also got to, like you said, interpret that data, but also to, I suppose, speak a language as well that maybe the driver's not an engineer. Clearly, they're usually the athlete. So you're obviously bridging that gap too, aren't you, in this is what's going on, this is analysing the data, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what the car's doing, and I now need you to do this immediately.
Yeah, it's to and fro. The driver will give their interpretation of what they need, and then you're trying to bridge that gap and piece it all together. And a lot of the times, you're not sort of really even an engineer. You're a psychologist as well.
Yes, yeah.
You're encouraging them. You're trying to put it nicely that they need to focus their efforts here and not over there. So and everyone's different, and everyone responds to things differently. So it's a combination of lots of different worlds.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got to develop a lot of trust too.
Yeah, the driver-engineer relationship in a race team, that's sort of commonly referred to as the most important one, because it's you've got to have trust and you've got to have faith in each other, that you're both lifting your weight and doing the best, because certainly in the driver's case, it's their career and their profession rests on performance. It's a results-driven industry, so if the team aren't performing, then the driver won't often be able to get the results they want either. So incredible trust, but camaraderie as well when it's all clicking and working.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm just getting my head around what that looks like as you're sitting there with the headphones on, and I'm sure there's lots of back and forth. So, Wes, tell me, what does a typical day look like for you? Like, what's the average? Like, you're getting up tomorrow to go to work. What are you doing?
Well, right now, tomorrow, I mean, firstly, every day is different. So it depends. Some days it's working at the workshop. Sometimes I work from home. Other times it's at a racetrack, or it's at an airport, flying to or from a racetrack. So every day is different. But right now we're preparing for a race that's coming up next week down in Melbourne called Sandown. in the southeast suburbs there, Sandown 500.
Yeah.
And we just had a test day yesterday at a racetrack. So today we've been analysing all the data and now we're getting ready for this next race. So it's a very short turnaround time for us trying to analyse everything that happened and then prepare for the next race next week.
Wow. Again, it sounds like it's a mixture between a really proactive sport, but then when it's happening, it's reactive. Would that be right? Like it sounds like you said there's lots of preparing and that being really proactive in, like you're saying, analysing the data so then you can go out there and obviously implement it. But then obviously when the race obviously happens, it's really reactive. Does that sound right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head again. There's so much sort of planning that goes into it all the practice sessions, qualifying sessions. There's, the tyres that you use, the fuel, the strategy of the race. And then it's, I sometimes equate it to, it's not like football and cricket when you're playing a game, there's sort of two teams competing. And then, motor racing, when we go to this race next week, there's 26 cars. So you're focusing on what you're doing, but there's 25 other people battling against you at the same time, like a high-speed game of chess. So there's always something happen, and how you strategize that.
Okay.
You can, you plan all these different scenarios, but it's unfolding in real time in front of you, and we've got so many tools to try and understand. But it's those decisions you make in the heat of the moment that are the important and crucial ones.
So Wes, I just have to ask you this. So how do you keep you cool? How do you keep a clear head with all this going on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. You just
you've just been doing it.
I guess when you've been doing it for so long, you find out and work out a way. Like I love motorsport and I'm passionate about it, but it's sort of, I guess you sort of put a bit of a game face on, and it's a professional job for me. It's a career as it is to other people at this level. So while you enjoy it and you're there to have, it is fun. You're there to do a job and you're employed, and it's a high level sport. So you want to operate at a high level and be professional and get the best results. So yes, there's plenty of time afterwards for laughter and frivolity. But you're just trying to put your game face on and try and get the best result for your driver and the team possible.
Yeah, really be in the moment. Sounds like you were born for this. So Wes, you've also got your own business that I referenced earlier. So you've got online video courses and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people listening. I'm sure dads, mums of budding racing drivers and engineers and the like. Yeah, so what do you offer? What can we expect if we jumped online to one of your courses?
So it's called The Complete Race Driver, and it's about trying to help drivers understand what it takes to become a racing driver, because there's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot that's you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of kids coming from go-karting and making their first sort of steps into motor racing, and as I touched on before, it's motorsport's complex. It's not like a cricket bat and ball or tennis and ball or kicking a footy, and that you can visually see and have a coach train you. Motorsport, you sort of don't see what happens with the athlete in this case, because they're behind the wheel or they're in a car, and it can be quite hard to find that out. So we're lucky that we have so much data with the cars and onboard video and things like that. So I'm just using my experience working with sort of hundreds of drivers over 30 years of doing this to give back and to try and help teach all these up and coming kids how to drive the right way so they can have fulfilling careers in motorsport as drivers. Yeah,
it sounds incredibly rewarding. And so a part of that giving back is obviously you've had your surgeries, you've got this phenomenal career that you're clearly born to do. And so now, do you feel like the worlds are colliding with obviously HeartKids and Supercheap? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so the last 2 years I've worked as the race engineer of the Supercheap Auto racing wildcard. So that does sort of 3 races each year. one of them being the biggest race in Australia, being Bathurst 1000. So, yeah, earlier this year, one of our races in Darwin at Hidden Valley, I realised that HeartKids was on the car, and there was this synergy there between what I'd been through and this car that I was engineering had Supercheap Auto was helping out through HeartKids. So this credible connection there, and I just knew I wanted to be part of it, and as you said, the worlds collided, and it was great timing.
Yeah, it sounds almost a bit surreal.
Yeah, I guess it was in a way, and after my surgery in 2015, and I was sort of getting quite overloaded with work. I took a bit of a year out and tried to refocus on what I wanted and what I wanted to do, and also give time back to my family, because that's super important to me. Having a daughter and my wife that's put up with so much of my motor racing career, that I wanted to try and give back, and so I tried to paint a picture of what life might look like, and being able to have my own business and giving back to that was important to me. So I get a lot of enjoyment through that, and then again through HeartKids, anything I can do there is also another way of giving back and helping, and that in turn makes me feel a little bit more fulfilled as well.
Yeah, and I hear also too you've had a little bit to do the Darwin Triple Crown. There was a 13-year-old girl called Lily who's a HeartKid. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me about that connection and what involvement you had with each other?
Yes, that race up in Darwin is known as the Indigenous Round, and for that event all the cars are painted in different colours, Indigenous colours, and the Supercheap Auto racing car was painted and designed with Lily, who's a 13-year-old HeartKid, and another local artist, William, I believe. And it was depicting Lily's story and had her handprints over the car in an Aboriginal design.
Wow.
And so, I managed to meet Lily. She was there to sort of see her design in the flesh, so to speak. So it was really good to make contact with her and share a few words prior to the race weekend.
Wow. So did you get to hear a bit more about Lily, and did you get to meet her family?
Yeah, I got to speak to her for a little bit and meet her parents who were there as well. And you could certainly tell they were proud as punch that she was, doing something like that and able to have that opportunity. So it was a good story around for everybody.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Wes. And so you've referenced obviously one of the biggest car races, even I know that, in Australia with Bathurst. And so that's obviously coming up. So what does that mean for you, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest race on the Australian calendar. So it's a big sort of week. Yeah, the race is on Sunday, but it's a big week leading up to it, and sort of four days total of practice and qualifying before we get to the race. And as we touched on before, it's all the preparation that goes on back at the workshop and beforehand that is super important to that race. So it's something I've always wanted to win. I've finished second and third there a few times.
Yeah,
personally,
okay.
But never quite got to the top. So it's something that everyone wants to win, whether you're a driver, an engineer, a mechanic, team owner, whatever that might be. It's motorsport in Australia's grand final.
Yeah, so well said. Okay.
It's got sort of history and prestige, and it's been going on for a long time. So it's important to a lot of people.
Indeed. And for those obviously listening, I'm in the studio. Wes is on the screen in Brisbane, and I saw a little twinkle in his eye as he was telling me that. He's looking, you've got your eye on the prize, and understandably so. But also too, Wes, you're playing another role. Obviously it's phenomenal what you're doing, obviously, in the race world, the fact that those worlds have collided with Supercheap, obviously being a major sponsor now of HeartKids. And then having that connection with Lily, that's phenomenal. Like, that must have been such a surreal moment to, understand that HeartKids is on the car, and then there's this beautiful Indigenous artwork and it's done by a fellow HeartKid. Like, That must have felt really quite special. But you're also going to be supporting us with the Race to Remember. So that's a fitness challenge. So what's your plan, Wes? What's your game plan for this one?
Yeah, so throughout the month of October, I'm going to be doing 6,500 steps a day, which is, I think, just over 200,000 steps throughout October.
Wow.
So that's my plan and my journey throughout there. So, yeah, getting active and moving around, that's what I'll be doing.
That's your plan of attack. And I also hear that might also include walking around the Bathurst circuit. Is that right?
That's right. So, yeah, every year we walk the track. It's what we call track walk, funnily enough.
Okay.
With the name there.
Straightforward. That's
so
good to know.
Yeah, straightforward, straight to the point. So it's what the drivers and engineers do before each race, just to have a look, and it's a bit hard to sort of analyse when you're going around there at speeds up to 300 kilometres an hour, all the subtleties of the track. So we walk around together and pick apart all the fine points of it all. But yeah, it's good timing. That event's in October, and it's the track's 6.2 kilometres, so it rises and falls quite a lot. So that'll certainly be forming a small part of my 200,000 steps throughout October. So it'd be good to have the drivers there with me going for a walk, and we can certainly try and help things along for the Race to Remember for HeartKids.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed all of this tonight, Wes. I must admit I don't know a lot about car racing. Obviously, I know about Bathurst. I know that growing up as a kid, my father was, your father's either a Holden man or a Ford man. He was a Holden man. Do you know what I mean? There's all those things. I remember being told stories. My father has passed, but I remember hearing stories of exactly that. So, people would congregate and drive from wherever to get down and to actually witness Bathurst. So I know that was the case for my parents, and probably there's many people listening thinking, yep, I grew up with all those stories. So it's beautiful to connect that all back with you and, that connection that you have with our community. So I'd love to wrap up our conversation around just this. There's so much to take away from your journey, from your parents' journey, from your journey to those worlds colliding, to you giving back. So if there's people listening tonight, do you have any tips or anything you want to share that I suppose, we've spoken to parents where, and I was one of those parents where we get told, oh, look, your child will never be an Olympian or may not be an elite athlete, but it clearly hasn't stopped you. I know you're not physically driving the car, but you're mentally driving the car. And like you said, you're analysing so much data, and you're using this other layer of skill, like you said, reference to psychology, to really communicate what's going on and all that trust. So what do you want to share with those parents that are listening going, oh my gosh, that seems nuts if my kids wants to follow a career like yours. But yeah, what would you like to say to that?
Yeah, look, I guess, I think the only thing my parents ever said to me when I was a kid was, you're probably never ever going to run a marathon. But there wasn't really anything, there wasn't sort of too many road blockages about what I could or couldn't do. I love playing sport, so, it wasn't huge, or lots and lots of sport, but it was, every lunchtime I'd be playing cricket or footy or doing something. I love being active. And, when I was sort of growing up, I found out that there was an Olympian snowboarder called, I think, Shaun White, who was referred to as Carrot Top. He did the half pipe and stuff, and he had the exact same condition as me called Tetralogy of Fallot.
I didn't know that.
And so I didn't realise that till too much later, and it's sort of I guess he's had heart surgery. He's got to be certainly physically fit to be doing that. So that gave me a little bit of inspiration, So I think just as a heart kid and a heart adult, you just realise everything's just maybe a little bit harder, but you just tend to focus a lot more on your diet, being active. I think they're super important. And then as you get older, just learning to listen to your body.
Yeah.
I think the industry I was in, I pushed myself so hard because I was passionate about it, but it wasn't until I stopped and slowed down and I had my second surgery. It's like, hey, no, you've got to listen to your body, and you've got to pace yourself, because you're not 20, 22 anymore. And yeah, life's important, and especially to those around you. So you want to make sure that you are being healthy and you do have a good quality of life. So that's certainly been a focus of mine in the last, say, five years. So yeah, it's been good that my parents have told me, like, it sounds really boring, but don't smoke and don't do all these things, and it might sound nerdy and it's not cool and all those things, but yeah, I'm so lucky I did have some guidance, because it's afforded me a better quality of life now as an adult to try and be healthy. And even if you're not healthy, it's that process of striving to try and be healthy, not just your body, but also your mind. That's certainly important as well in my experience. As you get older, when you're younger, you just you have no fear and you're thinking about everything. But yeah, when you're older, it certainly becomes a factor.
Yeah, wise words, Wes. Wise words. So true. It's about, like you said, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy heart. And I think also too what you've touched on is just putting things into perspective as well, putting your career, your family, your overall well-being all into perspective. And it's that thing that we reference but we don't always do, and that is listen to ourselves, listen to our body. And I think that's a really key takeaway is for us anywhere at any age is to listen to your body. So thank you so much, Wes. This has been an incredible conversation and chat, and one that I will be definitely reflecting upon, and I will definitely be tuning into Bathurst and following the Supercheap car.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll be tuning in as well. Don't worry.
Thanks, Wes.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much. Thanks, Amy.
Sometimes this podcast talks about some heavy things. If this brings up anything for you or someone you love, it is important to reach out for support. The HeartKids helpline provides support and guidance for anyone impacted by CHD. You can call the helpline on 1800 432 785. To access more information about CHD, as well as support from HeartKids, visit the website at heartkids.org.au. The information on this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice from your doctor or healthcare team. Always talk to your doctor about matters that affect you or your family's health.